Welcome, America, to AmendmentOneRadio.com, where your First Amendment rights are still safe to say what's on your mind.
Good afternoon. It's 5:30, and my name is Catherine K. Guns. I have 15 years experience of handling firearms, 2 years as a firearms dealer, and one day I took a concealed weapons permit course, and I learned more in that 3.5 hours than I did in all the years of handling firearms. And so I wanted to share that with you guys today, a little bit about a history of firearms and some whatnots. After that, I became a firearms instructor, and I'm currently a range officer, and I enjoy teaching and learning every day. And this show is brought to you by sponsors and advertisers. And I wanted to thank Nolan from the Talkwad Radio Network. So if you guys want to be a sponsor, an advertiser, or even a radio talk show host, you can check out the link that's right there on Talkwad's Radio Network, which is www.talkwad.com. So TALKWAD.com. The call-in number for the studio is 727-493-2055. So it would be kind of interesting to have some interaction going on there. So, Gerald, how are you doing today?
Pretty good. Yep,
Awesome.
hanging out there, enjoying the wonderful rain and all the car wrecks and all the craziness.
Yeah. Actually, he saved my butt this weekend. It was in the past week. My window decided not to work anymore. So if it wasn't for Gerald, I wouldn't have a working window, and now it's raining. So every time I look at the window, I think of him.
Cool.
I don't know if that's a good thing or not.
Good thing I didn't bring you any produce.
Right? Oh, boy. Wow. So it has been one interesting weekend. We've heard a lot on the TV with Obama and all of his speaking and things like that. Any take on that?
It's just lies, lies, and more lies. I think it's great how you can sit there and do a State of a Union address and really not, in all honesty, even touch the aspect of the economy. So, he wants to sit there and say, give these people that got shot, give them a vote. Give them a vote over here. Give them a vote over there. No, let's give a vote for the mentally handicapped people that created this situation, and let's get them taken care of. So that way you won't have people that supposedly don't know what they're doing. They'll actually know what they're doing. And the bad people that carry guns that ain't supposed to and do bad things, well, guess what? I like Ted Nugent's approach. If they screw with you and they get it screwed up and they want to do stupid stuff in your own house, kill them. Put them in a body bag, and guess what? You just saved the justice system hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I always say that, it's serious business there when you do have to defend yourself. And if you have to, then you can only use the best judgment that, it comes along with the training. So along with what he just said there, I wanted to applaud Rubio for what he had to say. I loved his counter speech too. But I also wanted to read off something that Alan Putnam had said that I often say in all of my classes when I do teach, and it's just beautiful words to live by. In receiving a license to carry a concealed weapon for lawful self-defense, you are undertaking a great responsibility. A license to carry a concealed weapon is not a license to use it, and I'm sure that you share my hope that you will never find it necessary to use a weapon in lawful self-defense. But if you do, the law will only protect you only if you have acted within the law. Those who are choosing to arm themselves with weapons should therefore be armed with the most indispensable weapon of all, and that's knowledge. We're providing that information to you as a service in pursuit of that goal, and that only you can provide the wisdom, restraint, good judgment, and the law demands of those who possess the ability to take another man's life. And in the state of Florida, we use the term weapon with the concealed weapons permit because it's not just for firearms. It's for knives, stun guns, billy clubs, tear gas, I think, and a few other things in there.
Yep.
So I remember when I first took my instructor's class, we had this giant jar with a $5 donation every time you use the word weapon, because in our industry we usually like to use the term firearm because it's not necessarily a weapon when we use it for the things that we plink in paper and hunting and things like that. But according to the views on the concealed weapons permits in the state of Florida, they actually terminalize it as that. So.
Dang, just think now all them times you used to sit there and think, hey, is that a gun in your pocket? Should have been a weapon.
Yeah, right? Oh, my goodness. Some more fun facts. Oh, my goodness. So I did want to I also wanted to cover over a few things that have been going on, and I wanted to cover American gun culture and history. I'll start out with the gun politics in the United States. As long as it's been among the most controversial issues in the American politics for the last several decades, debating regarding both the restriction and availability of firearms within the United States has been characterized as stalemate between the individual right to bear arms based on the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution and the responsibility of the government to prevent crime, maintain order, and protect the well being of the citizens. Um, we all know where that's going. In the District of Columbia versus Heller, the Supreme Court of the United States held the Second Amendment and protects the right of the individual to own a firearm for the purposes of lawful self defense, most notably within the home, while at the same time reaffirming the constitutional of a wide range of long standing gun control laws. Repeated polling has found that the majority of Americans believe in the Constitution and ensures their right to own a gun, with less than 40% of Americans favoring the stricter gun laws. Of course, they don't let you know it that in those terms. They make it sound like everybody. And in fact, I think he had mentioned that in his address that the majority, but it's actually I got those off of Gun Facts. So
Everybody needs to have their own guns.
yeah. All right. So under the gun culture, I actually pulled this off of a website called Wikipedia, which they're actually also offering for donations too, because it turns out that this whole website is done by that. So I did donate.
Cool.
All right. So in this article, America as a gun culture, the historian Richard Hofstadter popularized the phrase gun culture to describe the long-held affections for the firearms within America. Many American citizens embracing and celebrating the association of guns and American heritage. The right to own a gun and defend oneself is considered by some, especially those in the West and South, as a central tenet of American identity. And this stems in the part from the nation's frontier history, where guns were were integral to the westward expansion, enabling the settlers to guard themselves from the Native Americans, animals, and foreign armies. Frontier citizens often assuming the responsibility of self-protection. And the importance of these guns derives from the role of hunting in the American culture, which remains popular as the sport of the culture today.
Yeah, they just wanted to sit there and pick on the Indians. It's like, hey, you ever hear the old joke about never bring a knife to a gunfight? Well, it's like, never bring a bow and arrow to a gunfight.
Well, they fixed our butts. You remember that some of the history. I don't know if they cover it in there. What was that little?
Little Bighorn.
Little Bighorn.
Yep.
They went and got the repeaters.
Yeah.
Surprise.
Definitely. Hey, us Redskins, we kicked ass down there.
Yeah,
Of
buddy.
course, we still got screwed by the government.
Oh, I'm telling you. The viewpoint of the firearms were an integral part of settling the United States and the least level of support of the urban and industrialized regions, where the culture and tradition of conflating violence of association of gun ownership with the redneck stereotype has played a part in promoting the support of gun regulation.
Yeah, it's like, hey, look, it's my brother Daryl, my other brother Daryl. Look at them. One's got a 50 caliber and the other one's got an M60. We're going duck hunting.
But you know what? They're darn good duck hunters. They really are. I actually was watching on the History Channel today. Everybody's been watching the reruns, and they say they don't admit to watching them reruns, but them swamp people are pretty interesting. I was watching. And they use guns too. It's an important part. In fact, I don't know if I'd want to hunt an alligator without a gun. That looks like it's pretty scary business there.
I actually know a couple idiots that are local that
actually wrangle them.
Yep.
Oh dear. Welcome to Florida.
Yes, sir. And believe me, they're not that far from here either.
Wow. So in 1995, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, whose employees routinely carry such weapons in the line of duty, estimated that the number of firearms available in the U.S. was 223 million. So that's about 25% of the adults in the United States personally own a gun, and the vast majority of them are men. About half of the adult U.S. population lived in the households with guns. The guns are a prominent in the contemporary U.S. popular culture, as well as appearing frequently in movies, television, music, books, and magazines. The origins of the American gun culture can be traced back to the American Revolutionary War, hunting, sporting ethos, and military frontier ethos that drawn from the country's early history. And so the first one they had made mention to was Calamity Jane, notable pioneer frontierswoman and scout as age 43. And well, I didn't actually pull a picture up of her, but you guys can easily go to that website. It's under Wikipedia, so you can see what she looks like. But she looks pretty tough there.
Actually, which one was it? Was it Calamity Jane or the other one that was supposedly a hermaphrodite?
How did we even end up in that subject there?
No, because actually I had some things where somebody did in school. They did like reports on the different women of the frontiers and stuff, and I can't think of if it was Calamity Jane or what's the other one? I don't know if it was Annie Oakley, but one of them was an actual hermaphrodite.
I
So
mean, that's kind of like just
yeah,
useless knowledge sitting up in there, right? Okay.
yeah, I always know the odd stuff.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Wow.
Talk about the
Thank
best of
you for
both worlds.
like punching me in the arm there, because I'm a gal.
Just think, you can sit there and go tell her to go do herself, and she can.
Oh dear, that's sick. We should not be going there. The American hunting and sporting passions comes from the time when the United States was Algerian, of subs, well, nation where hunting was an auxiliary source of food for some settlers and also deterrence for animal predators. Yeah, you got to put your glasses on because some of these words I can't read. A connection between the shooting skills and the survival among rural American men, as in many cases, the rite of passage for those entering the manhood. Today, hunter survives as a central sentimental component of those gun cultures as a way to control animal populations across the country, regardless of the modern trends away from the substances of rural living.
How are they controlling the populations of the animal when they were doing the rite of passage?
Where's your brain today? Are we going to spin off to your next show?
Actually, it's pretty good because this is just like leaving the door wide open for everything here.
You're on a wow. Okay. So the military frontiersman spirit derives from the early American. Oh come on, let's get back to being serious. I don't know, but you are funny, Gerald. My comedy relief. Okay, so the militia frontiersman spirit derives from the early American dependence on the arms to protect themselves from the hostile Native Americans and the foreign armies. Survival was dependent upon everyone being capable of carrying a weapon. In the 18th century, there was neither a budget nor a manpower for nor government to desire to maintain a full-time army, believing in that the threat was to the rights of the civilian populace. So therefore, the armed citizen soldier carried the responsibility. Service in the militia, including providing his own ammunition and weapons, was mandatory for all men. Yet, as early as the 1790s, the mandatory universal militia gave away the voluntary militia units and reliance on the regular army. When, with a decline of importance of the militia trend continuing throughout the 19th century.
Of course, and again, what was the militia? Because actually, militia is tied into your Second Amendment too.
Absolutely.
Now, see, this is sitting there saying that all your frontiersmen were basically a militia, whereas the Second Amendment is kind of contradictory as far as militia saying militia as far as government or militia as far as actual people. So,
well, it's in good argument, and I've heard it stated many a times. But you got to remember back then, they didn't. These were people from all different kinds of cultures and all different kinds of backgrounds that came together over here in America and got together and defended our rights to be free and to have different opinions and to have different feelings on things and not be controlled one way or another in that
yeah.
aspect. So that's
Yeah, but the good part about it is when people want to sit there and they comment, they say, well, when the Second Amendment says militia, well, what they don't realize is what you're stating right here. I mean, is actually a factual evidence that militia was considered of the actual people that were there. It
mhm.
was more related as a group of people, whether it be men or women or just men. These were the actual Americans that were considered a militia.
Mhm.
So, the Second Amendment right should stay just exactly the way it is, and we shouldn't have no bonehead up there talking about, oh, let's get rid of our firearms.
The closely related to the militia tradition was the frontier tradition. Within the 19th century, westward expansion closely associated with firearms. Regardless of today, there remains a powerful central evaluation of the gun associated with the hunting, sporting, and militia frontier ethos among American gun culture. Though it has not been a necessary part of daily survival for a long time, generations of Americans have continued to embrace and glorify the living inheritance as a permanent element of nation style and culture. And I kind of, when I read that where it says, though it has not been a necessary part of daily survival, according to that TV series that I was watching, apparently it is daily survival for them because they're out
Yeah,
there
you got to
hunting for
eat.
a living. They got to
Yeah,
eat. They really
yeah,
do. So,
yeah. The
um,
skins made clothes and stuff.
yeah, not everybody goes to work in an office every day. They're the swamp is their backyard. That's
Yeah.
their office. So it was actually pretty interesting. So in particular, we can say that the gun culture has always been a piece of the Southern life, and it still remains. The main roots of the gun culture in the South may have been number one, the need to control a large number of enslaved people. Number two, the persistence of frontier lifestyle due to the proximity of different Native American tribes. Three, sparsely populated towns and villages that made it necessary for isolated farmers and planters to use their weapons in order to defend themselves. So that was in the 19th century. Popular culture. The gun has been a symbol of power and masculinity. In the popular literature, frontier adventure was the most famously told by James Fenimore Cooper, who was credited by Petri Lukionen
Yeah.
with creating the archetype of the 18th century frontiersman through such novels as The Last of the Mohicans and The Deerslayer of 1840. And let me see, in the 19th century, the cowboy and Wild West imagery entered the collective imagination. The first American female superstar, Annie Oakley,
I think it
was a
was Annie Oakley.
no, it wasn't.
Yeah.
It's great. No, that.
Yep. Actually, I think it was. I
I'm
think it
gonna go.
was
I'm
Annie.
gonna fact check
Yeah.
that.
I'm telling you, I think it was Annie Oakley.
Yeah, I'm gonna fact check
Yep.
that. So in the 19th century, the cowboy and Wild West imagery entered the collective imagination. The first American female superstar was Annie Oakley. She was a sharpshooter who turned the country and starting in the 1885 performing the Buffalo Bills Wild West show. The cowboy archetype of the individualist hero was established largely by Owen Wister and the stories and novels mostly notable by the Virginian of 1902. Follow close with the heels of Theodore Roosevelt's The Winning of the West in 1889 to 1895. The history of the early frontier. Cowboys were also popularized in the turn of the 20th century cinema, notably through such early classics as The Great Train Robbery of 1903 and The California Holdup in 1906, the most commercially successful film in pre-Nickelodeon era. That's pretty interesting.
Mhm.
Gangster films began to appearing in as early as 1910, but became popular only when the advent of the sound films in the 1930s. The genre was boosted by the events of the Prohibition era, such as the bootlegging and the St. Valentine's Massacre of 1929. The existence of real-life gangsters such as Al Capone and the rise of the contemporary organized crime and escalation of urban violence, these movies flaunted on the arch exploits of the swaggering, cruel, wily, tough, and law-defying bootleggers of the urban gangsters. Yeah, you trying to read over that word I skipped? I couldn't read it.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what it means.
Yeah. Archie T. Powell.
Archetype.
Oh, really? Well, no, it doesn't say it like that. It says flaunted the archetypal.
Yeah.
Uh,
Archetpypal.
Archetypial.
Oh,
Archetypial.
I love you,
There
man.
we go.
That's my personal dictionary up there. So, what's the definition of that?
An archetype is a like a stereotypical type of person, like a cowboy or an Indian.
Oh, I see. So that's what they were they're basing it on. It was the movies flaunted the archetypal exploits of the swaggering, cruel, wily, tough, and law-defying bootleggers of the urban gangsters.
Oh, cool.
Oh, I learned something new today. Isn't that awesome? We learn every day.
Yes, we do.
With the arrival of World War II, Hollywood producers and many moral boosting movies patriotic rally crying affirmed was the sense of national purpose. The image of the lone cowboy was replaced with the combat films by stories that emphasized on group efforts of the value of the individual sacrifices for a larger cause, often featuring a group of men with a diverse ethnic backgrounds who were thrown together, tested on the battlefields, and molded into dedicated fighting units. Guns frequently accompanied by famous heroes and villains in the late 20th century in American films, from the Outlaws of Bonnie and Clyde in 1967 to The Godfather in 1972, to the fictitious Law and Order Avengers like Dirty Harry.
Here we go. That's my buddy.
Yeah, in 1971, and RoboCop. Oh wow, that just took me on a trip back into the past. RoboCop of 1987. In the 1970s films portrayed by the fictitious and exaggerated characters, Mad Men, produced by the Vietnam War films like Taxi Driver in 1976 and the Apocalypse Now in 1979, while other films told stories of fictitious veterans who were supposedly victims of war and the need of rehabilitation, Coming Home and The Deer Hunter, both in 1978. Many action films continued to celebrate the gun-toting hero in fantastical settings. At the same time, the negative role of gun fictionalized in modern urban violence, such explored films as like Boys in the Hood in 1991 and Menace to Society in 1993. Gun politics as a political issue dates to the earliest days of the United States. Lexington Minutemen, representing the militia Minutemen, John Parker, a statue by Henry Hudson Kensington, and stands for the town green, Lexington, Massachusetts. Okay, so what they just showed there was that a statue of the man holding the rifle out there in Lexington.
Yeah, it looks like a Daniel Boone statue.
Yeah, it does. It's pretty neat. So. In the years prior to the Revolutionary War, the British, in response to the colonists' unhappiness and increasingly direct control of taxation to the colonies, impostered by a powder embargo to the colonies in an attempt to lessen the ability of the colonists to resist the British encroachments into the colonies regarding the local matter. So the two direct attempts to disarm the colonial militias fanned to what had been smoldering resentment over the British interference into the fires of war. Wow.
Damn, sounds familiar, doesn't it?
Yeah, I just got goosebumps, so we won't go there. These two incidents were attempting to confiscate the cannon of the Concord of Lexington militias, leading to the battles of Lexington and Concord in April 19th of 1775. In that attempt, on the April 20th, the confiscation of militia powder stores in the armory of Williamsburg, Virginia, which led to the gunpowder incident and face-off between Patrick Henry and hundreds of militia members on the side of the royal governor of Virginia, Lord Dunmore, and the British seamen on the other. The gunpowder incident was eventually settled by paying the colonists for the powder.
Yeah, now see, if old Dunmore would have done more, he would have been all right, because then the old British seamen wouldn't have had no problems. They wouldn't have been shooting their guns at him.
Minutemen were members of teams selected by the Oh my goodness. Okay. Minutemen were members of the teams that select men from the American colonial militia during the American Revolutionary War, who vowed that to be ready for the battle against the British with 1 minute of receiving notice. On the night of April 18th and April 19th, 1775, Minutemen Paul Revere, William Dawes, and Samuel Prescott spread the news that the regulars are coming out. Paul Revere was captured before completing his mission with the British and marched towards the army in Lexington and Concord to seize the Massachusetts militia's gunpowder magazine, which had been hidden there. Only Dr. Prescott was able to complete the journey to Concord, and the right of the militia was thus an issue of in the American from very early beginning. The Jackson era.
Mm-hmm.
The Jacksonian.
Jacksonian.
Is that how they're pronouncing it? The Jacksonian era.
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't they just say, okay.
Jackson area. You know, that president.
Woohoo! Not Michael Jackson.
It's a $20 bill, Jackson.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Poor
Uh,
guy.
lasted roughly from the president of Andrew Jackson's 1828 election from slavery issue that became dominant after 1850. The French aristocrat Alex the wow, I can't pronounce that name either. Taco
Tocqueville?
Tocqueville. Wow, I, I didn't mean to tear up his name so bad. He was probably very important.
I'm going to call him Taco Bill.
Okay. So, the French aristocrat traveled in the American early during this era, and according to Alex, the distinguishing characteristics of the American society in the 1830s, the era of Jackson democracy, was a passive spirit of individualism. And the French commentator confessed that the individualism was a novel term continued to capture a new idea. Okay, that was kind of like useless information, but okay.
Yeah.
During the same time, some of the first gun control laws were passed in the United States. As a result, the individual right interpretation of the Second Amendment began to grow in direct response to the early gun control laws. In keeping with this new persuasive spirit of individualism, as noted by Cornell, ironically, the first gun control movement helped give birth to the first self-conscious gun rights and ideology built around the constitutional right of individual self-defense. The individual right interpretation of the Second Amendment first arose in Bliss versus Commonwealth in 1822 in Kentucky, which evaluated the right to bear arms in self-defense of themselves in the state pursuant of Section 28 of the Second Constitutional of Kentucky in 1799. The right to bear arms in self-defense of themselves in the state was interpreted as the individual right. For this case, the concealed sworn cane. This case had been described as about the statute prohibiting the carrying of the concealed weapons as a volitive that was volitive of the Second Amendment. As noted in the Northern Kentucky Law Review, Second Amendment, the rights that conflicts in the 1980s, volume number 10, and let me see, in 1992 on page 155, the first state court decision resulting from the right to bear arms issue was Bliss versus Commonwealth. The court held the right to the citizens to bear in self-defense of themselves and the state and must preserve the entire. This means holding with the unique. This holding was unique because it was stated the right to bear arms was absolute and unqualified.
Definitely.
Wow. So there's a lot of history going on here on that. And so you guys can actually, I only read a part of it, and I actually am now kind of bored of it. And I must have printed out like 36 pages of it or whatever. But you can find that. It's got quite a bit of detail on the history of firearms. And you can go to wikipedia.com and check that out. And, you know, that website is so informative. It wouldn't be a bad idea to even make a donation. That's what they are asking for, to keep that going. So we're just we'll leave it at that. Is there anything, other subjects you want to cover?
Let's see.
I found something pretty interesting also on this article was written by Jason Hansen, and I always like the articles he writes. He's on the USA Carry. I don't know if anybody knows about that website out there too. That's a pretty cool website called USA Carry, and often I read a lot of articles from there. And Jim Hansen is pretty knowledgeable, and he has. Let me see. I wrote this. Where to carry your backup. So as soon as that'll pull up here. I guess it's going to be cranky. My computer's been cranky all day. All right. So there's a number of people I know that like to carry guns instead of carrying spare ammo because they believe it's the fastest to reload their backup gun. Personally, I sometimes carry 2 guns, and sometimes I just carry extra ammo. So I like a lot of these things. Gun related, there is no right or wrong answer. However, if you're going to carry 2 guns, I recommend these considerations. First, make sure that you train with both guns. That's actually a really good idea.
Yeah, really, you got 2 guns at the same time. Make sure you can hit them with all bullets instead of just 5.
Yeah, so make sure you train with both guns. Everyone likes to train with their favorite firearm, but few people like to train with their backup snubbies or mouse guns. I spend about 10 to 15 minutes a day dry firing and trade off between my primary and my backup gun. And I agree with that 100%. But my carry gun is a snubby. So I think it surprises a lot of people out there when they shoot that gun how much recoil it really has.
Yeah.
And the lighter, obviously, the lighter the revolver, the more recoil you're going to have. But mine's got some weight to it. So,
Yeah.
but alrighty. So let me see if I can get it pull up. Okay. Second, if I were you, I would carry my primary gun on my hip at the 4 o'clock position, and I would carry my backup gun in my front pocket. That is what I personally do, with my Glock 19 on my hip and my Ruger LCP in my front right pocket. I know a lot of people who like to carry their backup guns on their ankle, but I never have been a big fan of the ankle carry. Neither have I.
Actually, I know a few people that still carry it on ankles, but we won't say what they do for a living because most of those guns are not registered.
Did you know there's no registry in the state of Florida?
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's not. It is actually done by paper trail. This is how they do it. If you buy a gun, it's supposedly you're supposed to keep a paper trail even at the gun shows. This is where that loop comes into play. But when you buy a firearm from a gun store and you fill out a 4473, that is a paper trail. And so this is basically how it happens. Let's say the firearm got stolen and it was used in a crime and they found the gun at the crime scene. The police would then call the manufacturer of the firearm, and the manufacturer would say where they sent it to, a distributor.
Yeah.
Then the distributor says what store they sent it to, and then it goes to the store and they say who the firearm was sold to. And then hopefully you have a police report stating that it was stolen so that you're not the last man on the paper trail. But that's how they do it. So this whole talk about firearms needing to be registered or they're not registered, it sounds like such a really bad thing, but it's not. They can trace those firearms. They have ways of doing it. Where the system gets broken is when you take that lack of responsibility of checking the person out that you sold the firearm to.
Yeah.
And so there is, so right there, I think that anybody that sells a firearm to anybody best ought to probably gather some information and know who you're selling to. So,
yeah.
But that's how that comes into play. And then and I'm going to add my 2 cents on the ankle carry. We've often talked about it where if you carry on your ankle and you end up in a situation of self-defense, are you going to be able to get down to your ankle to defend yourself? It usually happens so quickly that you'll end up falling down, and then not a good position to be in.
Yeah, then the worst part about it is if you're in that kind of a situation and you wind up having to sit there and you're going through that much trouble to get the gun out and shoot them, then usually it's going to be more of a bad situation towards you because of the fact if you've got time to sit there and fight and get that gun, you've also got time to get away from the situation unless the other person has a gun as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So one of the main reasons that is drawing from the ankle is it's just too slow. I am a firm believer that you need to be able to draw your gun and get on target within 2 seconds or less. I can do this by drawing from both my hip and my pocket, but it is a lot more difficult to draw in less than 2 seconds from your ankle. Also, try to make any of your backup guns similar to your primary gun. You were going to say something?
Oh, no, I was going to say, hey, if anybody sees Catherine walking down the street, she's got this big bulge in her pocket, hey, don't mess with her.
I am not what is that term, hermaphrodite? That's just my kind.
Yeah, it is Annie Oakley.
Oh, dear.
Yep.
That ain't right. You better be sure before
I
defame
am
her. That
almost
isn't right.
positive is Annie Oakley. Hey, if anybody out there is listening, call up 727-493-2055 right now. Look on the internet real fast and check out and see, was Annie Oakley a hermaphrodite?
That is not right.
I'm dead serious, all kidding aside, because it was one of those girls that was actually a known hermaphrodite.
Oh, God. Now you got our techie looking it up. Like he's going to be pulling it up now. That just isn't right. And it better be under fact checker and no slandering thing.
Yeah.
I really like Annie Oakley. So, oh, my goodness. No. He's looking it up. All right. So.
It looks like it says hermaphrodite famous as Annie Oakley. Or
it does
Lady
not
Gaga.
Say that.
No, I said Lady Gaga.
No, it did not.
Yeah, it did say Lady Gaga.
Not.
I'm serious, it did. It just did. Okay, let's see.
How did a gun show go into this subject?
No, because I used to know people that thought, Annie Oakley was one of the greatest shots, which she was.
She was incredible. Oh, we got a pop-up.
Uh-huh.
Oh my goodness. Oh wow. Okay. So are you just let me know when you pull up that information if you unless you quit because of the pop-up that popped up.
Yeah.
Also, try to make your backup gun similar to your primary gun. In other words, if you carry a 1911, you might want the Colt Mustang as your backup. However, if you carry a Glock and you have a 1911 as your backup, you may forget to take off the thumb safety. If Glock makes a good pocket gun like the LCP, then I would rather carry that. However, the LCP doesn't have any external safeties, and like the Glock, all I have to do is pull the trigger to get it to fire, so they're pretty darn similar. Um, you know, I often also say too with the external safeties, there's a, everybody is so concerned about it getting the external safeties, but you got to remember that you are your safety. And with the smaller firearms, the long trigger pull is they designed it that way on purpose to show intent. You
Yeah.
really have to mean to fire that firearm. That's why that long trigger pull is there. So
Yeah, because you definitely got to be careful pulling that thing out of your pocket or something, or else you could wind up talking like Sam Elliott and go from Sam Elliott to Mickey Mouse in 2 seconds.
and that's called proper indexing and learning how to draw from your holster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course,
So
couldn't do that to Annie Oakley,
you're so bad. I just smacked him.
Talk about a real woman with a real pea shooter, huh?
Oh wow. Okay, man, I can't believe we're going there. But one of the last things I wanted to comment about was because I recently got an email concerning this. I also wanted to mention the unusual circumstances where my backup gun may save your life. Over the years, I have had a number of students tell me stories about how they were at an outdoor range with the mountains everywhere, and some remote or how suspicious looking character came up around and gave them a very bad feeling. Unusually, they would pack up and leave, and they would never heard from and I'd never hear from the student getting attacked or robbed with that while out shooting. However, it is common sense that criminals will go out to outdoor ranges as they are so secluded because they know that's where the guns are. And maybe one day, while you're at the range, some criminal will wait for you just right at the right moment to attack when you have emptied your gun and you have to stop to reload. But if you got your backup gun, then you will still have a way to protect yourself. Just don't empty it too. And if you know somebody is, and especially if you know somebody is watching you, I realize that it sounds far fetched, but when I am shooting in the mountains or people come around, I have always had my backup gun in my pocket, ready to go, just because you never know. The bottom line is whether you carry two guns or not, it's obviously up to you, but make sure that you practice with both so that you can make you sure that you can access both quickly. So,
Mm-hmm.
so some things to think about on there. That was pretty interesting. Did he ever fact check that? Now I am kind of curious. Oh my goodness. Wow. Let's see. Is there other really interesting information up on here too? Let's see. Not just California. Stand the fight.
There is nothing on the internet that says about anything about that.
Yeah, I didn't think it was true, and I would like to stand up and say, "You go, girl." There's a lot of haters out there. Alrighty. I also just pulled up something that was emailed to me, and it's called Stand and Fight. And the discussion on Stand and Fight with the Firearm Politics and Second Amendment issue forums, part of the main category Stand and Fight by Wayne Lapierre, before I tell you how the NRA and our members are going to stand. So basically what they're saying is before I tell you how the NRA members are going to stand and fight politically and the rest of the courts, let's acknowledge that all over this country that tens of millions of Americans are already preparing to stand and fight to protect their families and homes. These good Americans are prudently getting ready to protect themselves, and it has always been sensible for good citizens to own and carry firearms for lawful self-protection against violent criminals who prey on decent people. During the second Obama term, however, additional threats are growing. Latin American drug gangs have invaded every city of significant size in the United States. Phoenix is already one of the kidnapping capitals of the world, and through the states of the U.S. Mexico border, it may be the first place our nation suffers from cartel violence. By no means are they the last. So the president flagrantly defies the 2006 federal law ordering the construction of the source border fence in the entire Mexican border. So the border today remains porous. Not only that people are seeking jobs in the U.S., but the criminals whose jobs are murder, rape, robbing, and kidnapping. Ominously, the border also remains open to the agents of Al Qaeda and other terrorist organizations. So, numerous intelligence sources have confirmed that the foreign terrorists have identified the southern U.S. border as their path of entry into the country. When the next terrorist attacks comes, then the Obama administration won't accept responsibility. Instead, it would do what it does every time: blame the scapegoat and count Obama's mainstream media to enlarge to go along. This is wow. The heinous acts of mass murder, either by the terrorist or by some psychotic who has been locked up from long ago, will be the pretext of the unleashed tsunami of gun control. So no wonder Americans are buying guns in record numbers right now. And while they still can, before their choice of firearms is right for their family to be taken away forever. After Hurricane Sandy, we saw the hellish world of the gun prohibitionists as seen as their utopia. Looters ran wild in South Brooklyn, and there was no food, no water, no electricity. And if you wanted to walk several miles to get supplies, you better get back before dark, or you might not have gotten home at all. So the anti-gun in New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg has already done everything he could to prevent law-abiding New Yorkers. I got tongue-tied. New Yorkers from owning guns, and he has made sure that there are no ordinary citizen will ever be allowed to carry a gun. He even refused to allow the National Guard into the city to restore civil order because the guardsmen carry guns. Well, that was kind of really. Meanwhile, President Obama is leading this country into financial ruin, borrowing over $1 trillion a year for phony stimulus spending and other payoffs for his political cronies. Nobody knows if or when the fiscal collapse will come, but it is the country is broke, and they likely won't be enough money to pay the police for police protection. And the American people know it. Hurricanes, tornadoes, riots, terrorists, gangs, lone criminals, these are all perils which we're sure to face. Not just maybe. It's not paranoia to buy a gun, it's survival. And the responsible behavior, and it is time to encourage law-abiding Americans to do just that. Since the election, millions of Americans have been lining up in front of gun stores and Cabela's, Bass Pro Shops, exercising their freedom, and while they still have it. They are demonstrating because they have mass determination to buy, own, and use firearms. Millions of Americans are using market forces like never before to demonstrate the ardent support of firearm freedoms. That is one of the very best ways that we can stand and fight. Inevitably, the anti-gun media and gun ban lobbyists are demonizing the purchase of firearms. They call us extremists, even because we wonder whether we will be able to buy a semi-auto or 3 years ago, or even in some states later this year. That despite the fact that President Obama long ago made it clear that he wants to ban them all. The media tries to make rank and file Americans feels guilty about buying a gun. Remember, I had said that before. They're actually going to make us hate. Yeah, that's the way they're going to do it. So the enemies of freedom of demonizing gun buyers and portray us as social leapers. But we know the truth. We know that their responsible gun ownership exemplifies that it is the good and right about America. Responsible Americans realize that the world as we know it has changed. We, the American people, clearly see the daunting forces and that we undoubtedly face: terrorist crime, drugs, gangs, the possibility of Euro-style debt riots, civil unrest, and natural disaster. That's already happening in many other countries as well.
Yeah.
I mean, when few of those countries, their money collapsed.
Yeah.
There was. They can't hear me
Oh.
because I went away from the microphone.
Yeah. Well, the bad thing about this
Yeah.
is that, even the sad part about it is it's all true. You can go in there and look at all your gun shows, people, check it out, look and see what's being bought and sold. I mean, ammo, guns, everything's flying off the shelves. But what a lot of people don't realize is that, yeah, Obama is, in a situation where him and the group that he represents, along with, everybody else as far as politicians, their thing is basically we have to stop the guns. But what you don't realize is this. I would not be surprised that in 2015, right before the election, before 2016, that you'll see a mass hysteria as far as gun control to the point to where it'll be set up to where you will be uh, possibly seeing the first president that well, actually the second president that will invoke martial law. But what a lot of Americans don't know is technically we are still under martial law from Abraham Lincoln because of the simple fact that martial law was never rebuked at that time back then. So, as far as a legal standpoint, we're still in martial law up to this date.
Oh wow. uh,
Yeah. Wait till people sit there and see. And for those of you who really haven't paid attention and they think it's a real crackpot to say something like that, well, I tell you what, check out this one bill that was just passed and signed by Obama himself, along with his group that went in there and put this together. It's called NDAA 1. Check it out. Read it. You'll love the fact to know that President Obama can walk out the White House, and if he deems you as a person that's unfit to America, he can have you locked up immediately by himself for life. No criminal trial, no trial whatsoever. They can put you in jail for life. Now, that doesn't only extend to him, it extends to all of our military, and it is a legal law right now to where all you got to do is the military have the right to arrest you, and you have no trial, no right of anything. So,
wow. It just gives me goosebumps. There's so many things that are happening that people aren't paying attention to because all we really want to do is, go to work, pay our bills, and be happy.
oh, you want to get that
Yeah.
free phone,
Yeah.
all that other stuff, It's like, hey, if it's free, it's for me. I want it.
Right?
So,
Oh my goodness. So to preserve well, I can't pronounce that word either. Our individual human right to keep and bear arms, withstand the siege that is coming. The NRA is building a 4-year communications and resistance movement. The enemies of the Second Amendment will be met with the unprecedented defiance, commitment, and determination. We will stand and fight. First, we are going to devise the legal capability like never before. I fervently hope that the President Obama does not get to appoint another anti-gun Supreme Court justice like the Sonia
Sotomayor.
Sotomayor or Elena Kagan. And he probably will. And we must meet that challenge. So his chances of appointing a replacement for one of the top pro rights justices in the 5-4 Heller and McDonald majorities are high. There are no doubt that he is going to appoint a huge number of new judges to lifetime positions in the lower federal courts. Lifetime?
Yeah.
Lifetime.
Yeah.
Really? So is he going to try to appoint himself as lifetime president too?
That's where your martial law comes into effect.
Starts to give me goosebumps, I can tell you that. I'm going to share that with all of my friends too. Also, guys, as very, very soon, I'm going to have a website built up. And then all of these articles and stuff that I read to you, I'm going to make it available for you guys to read so that you can understand what's going on there. That was some pretty interesting stuff. My goodness.
Yeah, it's actually kind of scary too, because if you sit back and think about it, it's just we as Americans, it sounds like something you'd see in a Bruce Willis movie or anything. But, the problem of it is it's knocking at your front door, it's looking you in the face, and it's basically sitting there saying, what you going to do about it? Not a damn thing, because we, as Americans, we want to put our head in the sand. And if it doesn't affect us, then we're not worried about it. But the problem is you've got kids, your kids got grandkids, and guess what? It affects every one of those. So, because how do you sit there and have all the FEMA camps out in the Midwest that are totally empty? How do you explain that they're still building more? when we have no natural disasters where these people are being taken to be helped out.
I don't know. So, anyways, I wanted to. We're going to wrap this up in about 2 more minutes. The show was brought to you by our sponsors and advertisers and people out there like you. I would like to, thank everybody that has supported me, my viewers, and everybody out there. And I also especially wanted to thank Nolan from Talkwad Radio Network, because without him, none of this could be possible. We basically started out in a closet with a microphone, and now look at me. So.
Mm-hmm.
We
She's in a closet and got a bigger microphone.
That's right. And a banner, too. So we actually have 2 studios now. We have one in Clearwater and also in Tampa. The one in Clearwater is located off of US 19.
Yeah.
Kind of just south of Curlew.
Yeah.
And then the one in Tampa is off of Dale Mabry and Limeball.
Yep.
Kind of right behind the Starbucks. So
yep.
You guys can definitely check out the website to check out our studios and maybe even become a show host or a guest. That would be kind of cool. I always enjoy guest and drop-ins. So
definitely.
That's on www.talkwad.com. So that's TALKWAD.com. So, wow. And so if you ever wanted to call in, or maybe you just, wanted to, interview for one of those positions, you just have to call 727-493-2055. I think I always go too fast on my 2-minute warnings, but can we wrap it up, man? Yeah, everybody out there, you have a wonderful night out there.
Take care and have a happy Valentine's Day.
Woohoo!
Go home and show your old lady your real gun.
No matter how far, to fight for the right without question or pause.